Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and we are finally doing the comparison that all of you have asked for. Rubicon 392 versus Ineos Grenadier. If you're going to spend about $90,000 on a crazy off-road SUV, which one should you go for? Before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to the Doug Smith Jeep here in American Fork, Utah for giving me some time with this Rubicon 392. They have this and a few others currently available for sale. So if you happen to be interested, link to their inventory in the description down below. Link to my car buying guide as well. Let's get into it. So powering the Grenadier is a turbo 3-liter inline-6 that goes through an 8-speed automatic transmission. Power outputs are 282 horsepower and then 331 pound-feet of torque. Real-world fuel economy is around 17 miles per gallon. Now with the Rubicon 392, it's powered by a 6.4-liter Hemi V8 that goes through an 8-speed automatic transmission. Fuel economy in the real world, you're about 15, 16 miles per gallon depending on how you drive. And then power outputs 470 horsepower and then 470 pound-feet of torque. Before we move forward with this comparison, I do want to mention if you want to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. So starting with the Grenadier, basically looks like an old school Defender. That's what they were going for. That's why you've got stuff like the checker plates there on the hood. You can see the circular headlight design. Those are actually off-road lights in the center. Notice with the front end, you've got tons of skid plates, also sculpted for approach angle. But yeah, it kind of has that old school luxury off-roader look. The Wrangler, on the other hand, obviously has the signature Jeep look. Now with the 392, we have that huge Hydro guide in the center, and then you can see with the blacked out grille, and then we've got, of course, hardcore off-road bumper. Winch from the factory. You can see the Grenadier also has a winch behind that little cover. And so when it comes to off-roading, I mean, the Wrangler does have more ground clearance, but they have a lot of the same equipment. Now, when it comes to tires and wheels, this is where the Wrangler takes an obvious win. The Wrangler has 35s wrapped around 17-inch wheels. The Grenadier also has 17-inch wheels, but those are like 31s, maybe 32s if you really stretch it. You can fit 33s on stock suspension with the Grenadier, but they don't offer that from the factory with tires. Notice with the fender flares here, pretty big and chunky, but then the Wrangler fender flare is just huge. It is painted, so it makes it look a little bit less extreme, I suppose. The Grenadier has a raised air intake from the factory. The Wrangler doesn't have anything like that, but it does have the antenna in the windshield, which frees up some space, I suppose, on the front end and makes less wind noise. Both of them have squared mirrors, which is very interesting. We've got rock rail protection on both of them as well, and then you guys can see with the setup there. Now the most important thing I think to mention now is we've got a solid front axle on the Grenadier and we've got a solid front axle on the Wrangler, and then we've got solid axles in the back with both of them. Now here's your full side view with the Grenadier, and then here's your side profile with the Rubicon 392. Now let's take a look at the storage. Starting with the Wrangler, you've got the swing gate there and the window opens, and it's pretty spacious here in the back. Now even though this is an off-roader, we've got some carpeting here in the rear. I want to mention that because we'll see a little bit of a different solution in the Grenadier. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty spacious back here, pretty practical. It is a 4-door Wrangler, and closing that's pretty straightforward. And then this is easy, just gotta plop it into place. And you've got a spare tire on the back. Again, got that cool off-roader appearance. You've got a recovery point back there as well. And so this leads us to the Grenadier. So it's got a completely different opening. So we've got this one little half door, and then we've got the kind of like not full door, but almost full door that you open up on the other side. And then you can see plenty of storage space in the back. And look at the bottom here, so not fancy carpeting. And then with the seats, you can also fold this down just like in the Wrangler. But notice again with the trim on the back of the seat, a little bit more spacious because you don't have a cage in the back, so that helps out with the overall space in the Grenadier. And closing it up, pretty straightforward. I like using the ladder to close this back part. Super solid sounding. Spare tire on the back. You got storage in this particular tire, but yeah, there's the rest of the rear. Also, you get a ladder too at the Grenadier. Forgot to mention that. Legroom back here is solid. We got a little storage pocket. We've got some vents here in the back. Window controls as well. And this Wrangler has really cool red seats with the 392. package. And this one actually is the sky top, but regardless, that was hot. Yeah, headroom's good. Now in the back of the Grenadier legroom, solid. You can see you've got vents and all that, just like the Wrangler. You got these fancy leather seats, the Recaro seats, for those of you that are wondering. And good headroom, just like the Wrangler. Now this is where things get funky. So you can see you've got the red stitching here with the Wrangler, got your mirror adjustments and all of that, blind spot monitoring with the mirrors, and then you can see with the front seats, again fancy red trim. Seats are power adjustable. We've got the light controls here, and getting in you've got this nice grab handle that helps out quite a bit. And then I love the Wrangler door sound. Like, listen to this. Sounds super cool. Got the V8 sound. You can see we've got a traditional gauge cluster, and the fact that it has a gauge cluster up front. And you have, you know, a digital element in the center, but mostly analog. Paddle shifters here on the back of the steering wheel, which is pretty cool. And then you have stuff like adaptive cruise control, and then you've got the stitching there. Nice trim all around in general. Look at that view out the hood. It's so cool to see the Hydro Guide bulge. Now this has a front and rear camera, so solid system with that. And then quick response time with the infotainment system itself for the most part, as you can see. And then down below, dual zone climate, heated and ventilated seats. Got all the window controls here. And then you can see the shifter for the 8-speed. Also, auxiliary buttons in front for items if you want to add that. Front and rear locking diffs, sway bar disconnect. And then advanced four-wheel drive system, 2-speed transfer case. It's got all of the goodies. And then you got some more storage here in the center. Got the sturdy grab handle there. You can see the stitching on the dash. And then like I said, this one is the sky top, so you press these buttons right here and then it retracts the top. Now popping over the Grenadier, it's actually more basic than a Wrangler. Believe it or not, there's a vehicle more basic than a Wrangler. So first off, no blind spot monitoring with the heat mirrors. Do have some nice trim here, I will say that. Taking a look at the seats, again, nice material use. But notice they are manually adjustable. I forgot to mention the payload in the Wrangler. The payload in this 1261, the Wrangler is less than 1,000 pounds, so this has more payload. It's got that going for it. No grab handle, so you gotta kind of get in by yourself. Now again, really cool door sound with the closing. And then you gotta take this out and stick it in the ignition. It'll, there we go. And then we just have a warning cluster, no actual gauge cluster. I mean, it does have a little toot function for the horn, so that's always fun. Just regular cruise control, not adaptive. And then if we pop it into reverse, we just have a regular backup camera there. It's kind of hard to see there. That's a better view. No front camera. And then you guys can see here, we've got this for the gauge cluster. So it's all in this center screen here. And this is cool though, with a little compass down below. And then you've got controls here for, you know, your heated seats, for example, some climate controls, all of that. And then this is where things get a little bit funny. BMW shifter because of the engine. It does have a, so just like the Wrangler, it's four-wheel drive all the time, or, you know, all-wheel drive technically, and then you can pop it into a four-wheel lock, and then it's 2-speed transfer case as well. And then you got little nice leather trim there. And then this is just analog controls for the infotainment system. I do like this center console setup a little bit more. It's not as spacious as the Jeeps, though, I will say that. And then the grab handle is pretty fancy in the Grenadier. I mean, look at that thing, the leather on it. And then this does have locking diffs, just like the Wrangler. No sway bar disconnect, though, so that is something to mention. And then this one's got these safari windows, so you can see out the top, which is another cool doodad. So now this leads us into pricing. This Wrangler as equipped stickers are about $100,000. And then this Grenadier with all the options, it has some of those are dealer installed options, would be about $94,000. So there's a little bit of a price difference. Let's see which one drives the best. So, starting off in the 392, and if you don't know, I happen to own one of these. It's a 22. I wanted to use a 24 though, because I think it's a more fair comparison doing the new 392 versus the Grenadier, because this has some stuff that my 22 doesn't have, like the power seats, for example. Sorry, this GoPro's falling off. But yeah, 392, and also the extra insulation I forgot to add. I think that's also good for me to see this comparison. Now it drives like a regular Wrangler, for the most part, the steering's a little bit more vague because it's four-wheel drive all the time. But it doesn't sound like a regular Wrangler. Like, you just... and it doesn't accelerate like a regular Wrangler. This thing, it's re-geared. It's got so much power. It's a monster in the best possible way. Now, one downside about the Wrangler is, you know, the daily drivability, right? This is a box, so you get quite a bit of wind noise, and this sky top is a little bit louder than the hard top. Not bad, but a little bit louder. So you do concede a little bit of daily drivability, but definitely got more than enough passing power with that V8. It sounds great too. Just a wonderful, wonderful engine overall. And so when you put the package together, it's solid. It's super, super solid. And then I guess the other thing that I'd say is it's just so cool knowing you have a V8 under the hood. So overall, Wrangler 392. Crazy that this is the fancy one with the radio controls in the back, the adaptive cruise control, blind spot mirror. Like, this has all of the fancy modern tech, and that Ineos is the more basic one, which is so weird. The Wrangler is not the fancy one, or is the fancy one in a comparison. That never happens. Literally never happens. So overall, it's basically, you know, what Jeep has been doing for a long time, but it's fancier. It's got these fancy seats, it's got some modern tech, and it's got a huge V8 under the hood. It's super cool, and this is the last year for this V8. So let's pop into the Grenadier and sum up the comparison. Well, starting off in the Grenadier. So first off, yeah, the steering's worse than the Wranglers. If you could have that. It's funny how it actually is worse than the Wranglers. I'm gonna do my favorite here, which is turning off the stupid speed warning. There we go. It's like the first thing that I do. And the next thing that is always cool to do in the Grenadier is to have the information up. There we go. Statistics. Seats are comfortable. I wouldn't pick one seat over the other. I think they're both good. This has better insulation. So like, they both have quite a bit of road noise. This has way less wind noise than the Wrangler. When it comes to ride quality, both of them are solid axle vehicles, so they're both going to be a little bit rough around the edges. The Wrangler might handle bumps a little bit better than the Grenadier, but it's not a huge difference. And then obviously this isn't a fire-breathing V8, so this powertrain's more than enough power, but it's not exciting like in the Wrangler. The Wrangler is exciting. This is just, it's adequate, and it's super solid. Like, I never feel like it's not enough power. And this interior definitely feels more bespoke. Definitely feels like a higher quality vehicle. The Wrangler feels rugged, but it's not the same level of yeah, it's not the same level as this. So I know this is not a lot of driving with the Grenadier, but it's rush hour traffic. I kind of, yeah, got stuck in a crappy situation with this. Here's how I would put it. I own both because I'm spoiled, but if I had to choose one, I lean towards the Wrangler, not because it's objectively a better vehicle, because this is better at doing certain things than the Wrangler. Again, it's more spacious, it's, you know, a little bit nicer interior. This is gonna be way better for overlanding if that's your thing off-road. The Wrangler's better at rock crawling, but I just think there's never gonna be another V8 Wrangler, whereas who knows how long they'll build these Grenadiers for, but this vehicle feels special, but the powertrain the Wrangler feels special. And with how the US has been tilting, I feel like it's gonna be harder to get special powertrains, but it won't be as hard to get a special vehicle, if that makes sense. So I love both of them, and obviously in a perfect world, I'd get both of them, and that's why I own both of them. But in a realistic world, I kind of lean more towards that Wrangler. Let me know which one you choose.